If you close your eyes and picture Switzerland, what comes to mind? For many people, it's snow-capped Alps, tidy villages, chocolate, and maybe a luxury watch ticking on someone's wrist. What you probably don't imagine are oil rigs, vast fields of wheat, or mines churning out iron and coal. That's because Switzerland doesn't have them. Unlike the United States, blessed with oceans of farmland and rivers of energy, or Saudi Arabia, with its seas of oil, Switzerland has very little in the way of natural resources. Yet somehow this small landlocked country in the heart of Europe grew into one of the world's most important financial centers. The paradox is striking. How does a nation with few natural advantages become a global hub of banking and finance? To answer that, you have to look at geography, politics, culture, and history. Switzerland turned its disadvantages into strengths and its limitations into opportunities. Its mountains, its neutrality, and its stability became assets more valuable than gold or oil. Let's start with geography. Switzerland is tucked in the middle of Europe, surrounded by giants. Germany to the north, France to the west, Italy to the south. The Alps dominate its landscape, beautiful but difficult. Farming is limited, large-scale industry was historically constrained, and access to the sea is non-existent. For many nations, this combination would mean poverty or dependence, but for Switzerland, it meant safety. The mountains provided natural fortifications. Invaders found them difficult to cross, and when they tried, they discovered how fiercely the Swiss defended their valleys. This sense of security laid the foundation for independence. Geography also nudged Switzerland toward trade and services. With little to export from the land, the Swiss learned to use their skills, precision, and networks. From the Middle Ages, Swiss mercenaries earned a reputation as some of the most disciplined soldiers in Europe, selling their services abroad while bringing wealth back home. At the same time, Swiss artisans developed crafts like watchmaking and textiles fields, where brains and hands mattered more than raw resources. These industries required precision and reliability traits that would later define Swiss banking. Then there is neutrality. Switzerland declared itself neutral centuries ago and managed to maintain that stance through Europe's bloodiest conflicts. During the 30 Years' War, when much of the continent was torn apart, Switzerland stayed out. During the Napoleonic Wars, it kept its independence. And in the world wars of the 20th century, while surrounded by battlefields, Switzerland remained officially neutral. This choice wasn't just luck. Neutrality became a national identity, something the Swiss defended fiercely. Neutrality created stability. And in finance, stability is everything. If you are a wealthy family in Italy during political turmoil, or a merchant in France worried about revolution, or even a king in some faraway court, you want a safe place to keep your money. Switzerland offered that. Its banks were not tied to empire, they were not likely to be seized by an occupying army, and they had a tradition of discretion. In a continent of upheaval, Swiss vaults looked like granite. Another factor is political structure. Switzerland is not a centralized nation in the way France or Britain became. It is a confederation of cantons, each with a tradition of self-rule. That meant power was spread out, and the country developed a culture of compromise and consensus. For finance, this was perfect. It created an environment where property rights were respected, contracts were honored, and no single king or dictator could suddenly confiscate assets. Investors love predictability, and Switzerland gave them that in abundance. Culture played a role too. The Swiss built a reputation for discretion, privacy, and reliability. In banking, those traits are priceless. For centuries, Swiss banks cultivated the idea that your money was safe not only from thieves, but from prying eyes. Banking secrecy laws codified in the 20th century formalized what had long been a practice. It wasn't about glamour, it was about trust. Clients from across the world, aristocrats, businessmen, governments, trusted Switzerland to keep their accounts safe and silent. But secrecy alone wouldn't have been enough without skill. Swiss bankers became experts in managing wealth, investing conservatively, and protecting assets across generations. Over time, this expertise snowballed. Money attracts more money, and by the 19th century, Switzerland had already become a magnet for capital. At the same time, Switzerland's political neutrality positioned it as a natural host for international organizations. The Red Cross was founded in Geneva. Later, the League of Nations and then United Nations agencies established headquarters there. This reinforced the image of Switzerland as a trusted, stable middle ground, a place where the world could gather, argue, and invest without fear of politics overwhelming business. By the time World War II erupted, Switzerland's role as a financial hub was already cemented. Its banks held assets for families and governments across the continent. Critics accused it of benefiting from war by holding Nazi gold, and post-war controversies remain. But what mattered for the long arc of history was the continuity. When the smoke cleared, Switzerland was intact, its banks were intact, and its reputation for financial stability was stronger than ever. And so, out of mountains and neutrality, out of a lack of oil and coal, Switzerland found wealth, not by digging into the earth but by building trust above it. Its banks became vaults for the world, and its financial expertise became one of its most valuable exports. That is the beginning of the story, but it does not end there. In the modern era, Switzerland's role in global finance has faced challenges from pressure to abandon secrecy to competition from other hubs. Yet the core reasons for its success, stability, skill, neutrality, still shape its financial power today. In the second part, we'll dive deeper into how Swiss banking evolved in the 20th and 21st centuries, why it still matters despite global shifts, and what lessons this paradoxical nation holds for the world. When you fast forward into the 20th century, Switzerland's position as a financial center becomes even more intriguing. After two world wars devastated Europe, the Swiss economy emerged not only intact, but more central than ever. While other capitals were rebuilding, Geneva and Zurich were already humming with financial activity. This was not an accident. Neutrality during the wars had preserved the country's infrastructure, and its banks had continued operating even while others collapsed. For investors, that track record of survival was irresistible. Banking secrecy, codified in 1934, turned practice into law. From then on, revealing client information without consent became a crime. The image of a Swiss vault, impenetrable, discreet, and silent, became part of global culture. Movies, novels, and headlines reinforced the idea. For decades, if you said someone had a Swiss bank account, everyone knew what you meant: safety beyond borders. Yet it wasn't just secrecy that built Switzerland's financial empire. It was also competence and adaptability. Swiss banks did not simply hoard money, they managed it. They developed expertise in private banking, wealth management, and conservative investment strategies. Families from across Europe and later across the globe trusted them not just to hold funds, but to preserve and grow them. That professional skill became a brand, just like Swiss watches or Swiss chocolate: precision, reliability, quality. But as the 20th century drew to a close, Switzerland faced new challenges. The very secrecy that had made it attractive also drew criticism. Governments accused Swiss banks of sheltering tax evaders and hiding illicit funds. Under international pressure, secrecy laws began to erode in the early 21st century. Agreements with the United States and the European Union forced Swiss banks to share information about foreign accounts. Some argued this would destroy Switzerland's banking advantage. Yet what happened instead was revealing. Even as secrecy weakened, Switzerland remained a major financial center. Why? Because secrecy was only part of the story. The real foundation was trust, stability, and expertise. Investors still believed in Swiss banks because they were well-capitalized, conservatively run, and embedded in a political culture of reliability. Other financial hubs, London, New York, Singapore, Hong Kong, competed, but Switzerland retained its niche in wealth management and private banking. Today, Swiss finance is more transparent than before, but still globally powerful. Zurich and Geneva are consistently ranked among the world's top financial centers. Trillions of dollars in assets are managed there, and Switzerland remains a leader in wealth management for the world's richest families. It has also diversified into asset management, insurance, and fintech. In other words, it adapted. Just as the Swiss turned mountains into fortresses and scarcity into opportunity centuries earlier, their banks turned changing global rules into new ways of doing business. So why does Switzerland remain at the heart of global finance, even without oil fields or fertile plains? Because its greatest resource has always been trust. Trust in its neutrality, trust in its stability, trust in its precision and discretion. Natural resources can be exhausted, but trust can be cultivated and renewed. That is what Switzerland mastered. Switzerland became a financial center not despite its lack of resources, but because of it. The mountains forced resilience, neutrality bred stability, and stability attracted the world's wealth. And that is the paradox of Switzerland, a small landlocked country with little to extract from the earth, but with the vision and discipline to become one of the world's financial giants.